Happy May, everyone! The Fatui Harbingers are amongst the apex predator in Genshin Impact's lore, equal or even transcending the power of the Archons we know today. So, I want to ask a very interesting question. How do you become a Fatui Harbinger? What do you get? How do you get your number? And what do you even need to be considered a Harbinger above everyone else? To be a Fatui Harbinger is to bind yourself eternally to your own delusion, and must have a conviction to reject the foundational principles of the world to an almost zealot degree. Of course, each member of the Fatui has their own reasons for joining, some having no choice while others being driven by power. The Fatui Harbingers are known in Devat as some of the most dangerous and influential people, not just because of their military prowess, but also their expertise in specialized fields such as economics and science, or sheer unparalleled power that separates them from the rest. Even the Archons speak about them with a kind of reverence that's almost unheard of, especially when you consider that this is a god talking about a potentially mere mortal. So, let's first begin with the question of what does a Harbinger have? Well, number one is that they have a delusion that's directly a badge of honor from the Tsaritsa. In Genshin Impact, there are several sources for delusions. Sometimes they're made from nest flowers, sometimes they're made in factories, but sometimes they're made directly from the power of a god. The delusions that the Harbingers possess are much more potent than the ones we've seen in Inazuma. Tartaglia describes his as a badge of honor and a proof of his strength, while Signora's cryo-delusion was made to inhibit the negative effects of her Crimson Witch corruption. Scaramouche is one of the rare ones, however, that don't have a direct proof of a delusion, and because we never fought him outside of the mechanical god, there is no concrete proof of his delusion's element. Some people are even just speculating that because of Dottoro's experimentations on him, the elements of the delusion itself are already embedded in him. We just know though from the Husk of the Opulent Dreams that he used a quote-unquote heart, but was nothing more than a fraud. It was once given to him as a substitute for the heart that he always dreamed of, but it was a mere prop, nothing more, for lies and deception. It is unknown, however, how the elements of the chosen delusion for each Harbinger are dictated. However, sometimes Harbingers don't need the delusion, because each of them possess an extreme power that is either created, inherited, or given. Dottore, Arlecchino, Pantalone, and Tartaglia are good examples of characters that are actually mere mortals, but have gained or created a special kind of power that separates them from the rest. Dottore's clones and self-induced immortality through segmentations are good examples, Piero's Curse of Immortality, Arlecchino's Pale Moon Bloodfire, Signora's Crimson Witch of Flames, and whatever is going on with Columbina. And last but not least, the Harbingers are also masters of influence and intelligence. They have enough prestige to warrant their title, such as Pantalone's extreme knowledge of economy and his willingness to take risks for the economic benefit of Snezhnaya, or Dottoro's ability to pursue science. A Harbinger must have prowess, intelligence, and the overall capacity to become a leader, because before they are powerful characters and warriors, they are political figures of Snezhnaya. But besides that, another important consideration if you want to become a Harbinger is the numbering system. In Genshin Impact, the Fatui Harbingers are ranked from 1 to 11. Well, technically 0 because Piero is technically not number 1, he's the director of the Fatui Harbingers, which makes Capitano number 1. It gets really confusing. But nevertheless, according to Tartaglia, the Fatui numbering system is dependent on their strength, which could be translated to not just physical prowess, but also political power, intellect, influence, wealth, and other kind of physical attributes. It's also important to note though that seniority doesn't seem to be how the numbering system works. Tartaglia being the newest member of the Fatui Harbingers does not immediately correlate to him being number 11. It is possible for you to join the Fatui and then get a number that's higher than the lowest ranking. However, in terms of strength, Nahida regards the first until the third Harbinger as being one of the strongest. Nahida makes a very clear distinction between Piero, Dottore, Columbina, and Capitano as being strong, or if not stronger, than divinity, stating that the top Harbingers until the third are on a different level, and which was why she was hesitant to have an altercation with Dottore. However, we also know that missing numbers, for whatever reason, do not get replaced. For example, the number 6 position has always been mysteriously empty without a real explanation. We actually don't know why the Fatui, in this alternate memory, decided to keep that position closed, so there's that. But even with that speculative scenario, numbers 8 and 10 remain to be disclosed at the moment. Pantalone and Tartaglia didn't get a position to be moved up to number 8 and 9 respectively, and number 10 is currently MIA. So the important question now is, if you wanted to join the Fatui, how do they decide your ranking? Well, there's 4 different ways according to the lore. Number 1 is that you're chosen. According to the Pale Flame artifact set, Piero approached these 4 Harbingers and recruited them himself. Each of the Harbingers he handpicked had massive potential, not just in terms of power or expertise, but also for motivation. Having personal grudges against the world itself, or being a social outcast for different reasons, are more than enough for the Fatui to take an interest in you. And it also doesn't seem like physical power is too big of a factor when considering who they're choosing. For example, Pantalona doesn't have a vision, had a relatively poor and difficult upbringing, and currently no mention of physical prowess outside of his grandiose plan for economic evolution. So as long as you have the motivation, you should probably still be good. Number 2, however, is they're currently in training from the academy. There's different facilities that mandate Fatui recruitment. Sometimes it's like the House of the Hearth, sometimes there's actual military facilities where people could be enrolled in, or sometimes they just handpick you off the streets. It kind of happens. Recruitment via another Harbinger's recommendation is also a good way of becoming a Harbinger yourself. Tartaglia was put in a strict military training program by his father in the hopes that it would temper his bloodlust and behavior. But because of Tartaglia's exceptional fighting skills against even fully armed troops, Pulcinella took interest in him and took him under his wing. Pulcinella inducted Ajax into the Fatui under the pretext of meting out punishment, ordering him to start from the very bottom and take up the duty of serving the Tsaritsa. On the contrary to that, there's also an instance where a Harbinger was put directly in the middle. Scaramouche, for example, is technically Dottoro's prodigy, or project, whichever one you want to talk about. Scaramouche's training sessions were given emphasis in his character's story 4. Dottoro unlocked Scaramouche's power by breaking the seal on the puppet's body, causing his abilities to greatly increase, so remarkably to the point where he was a match for the lower-ranked Harbingers. On the Tsaritsa's orders, he would lead a company to explore the Abyss, and there he spent much time and thus growing stronger. Much later, he would bring the results of his exploration back to Snezhnaya, gaining the 6th seat in the process. Signora also points out that he is only number 6 because he can take more abuse than other humans, hinting the rigorous experimentation that Dottoro has been doing on Scaramouche. However, one of the more seemingly common ways to become a Harbinger is through usurpation. If you kill the Harbinger, or beat them in battle, do you have rights to say that you're stronger than that Harbinger, and do you have the rights to demand for their chair? There's a lot of speculation if Arlecchino actually adopted the number 4 from her, or if Crusabina had a different number. It's not impossible to say that Crusabina could have had a different number, and Arlecchino simply rose to the ranks of the 4th through her own prestige. So, take your pick if you ever want to become a Harbinger, but there are some likely candidates in the future that could probably change this entire game. One is through inheriting the position. Linny is the successor of Arlecchino in the event that something were to happen to her, and she has tried to test not only him, but also his siblings multiple times through rigorous training. Now, is it possible that Linny himself could become a Harbinger? Actually, yes. There's a very strong possibility that Linny himself could be a Harbinger. Linny at his current state might not be as strong as Arlecchino, but I do definitely think that he has the potential to be as powerful as her if he was given a delusion and if he was trained properly. By properly, I mean hopefully not put under supervision under Dottoro. One of Linny's strongest assets, though, is that he is a good political figure. Not only are he and Lynette popular enough as it is in Fontaine as magicians, but he is also a capable leader of the House of the Hearth, meaning that he would be a perfect candidate for Arlecchino to make a contingency plan out of in the event that she needed a Harbinger. Now, what about the Traveler as an honorary Harbinger? We've already discussed that trial by combat could be one of the reasons that a person becomes a Harbinger, so would the Traveler's defeat of Signora be a good enough criteria to accept them? I am not quite sure myself, but in the future, since we are slowly but surely getting members of the Fatui Harbingers as our party mates, I'm sure that the Traveler will eventually become an honorary Harbinger, for better or worse. And what about number 10? There's no current information about who the number 10 is, and it doesn't seem that the current characters are eager to talk about them. It's honestly unknown if the current 10th Harbinger is actually just straight up missing from the Irminsul, similar to what happened with Scaramouche. But the thing is, even the 10th seat itself was never talked about, and it seems to be a very well-kept secret within the Fatui. What I actually find more interesting is that Scaramouche, considering that he already differed from the Harbingers, is not actually able to give us any kind of information. Because normally, if you're already trash-talking your coworkers, why not? But that's it for me today. The v4.6 Harbingers continue to be one of the more interesting aspects of Genshin's lore, especially when it comes to the plot building in the future. My name is Aster and thank you for chilling with me. Bye-bye!